Welcome to the Indomitable Podcast. I'm your host, Di Cerullo, and today we have another great episode that will leave you inspired. My guest today is the indomitable Kasia Musur. Kasia is a University of Edinburgh graduate with master's degrees in social anthropology, as well as global crime, justice, and security. Wow. Based in Berlin, she is the founder of Vent, a startup bringing together multidisciplinary collaborators, survivors, and technology to co-create solutions, reducing the impact of toxic leadership on individuals, communities, businesses, and the environment. Wow. Hello, Kasia. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Hi, Di. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get into the weeds here, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your work?
Thank you. I'm Kasia. I'm originally from Poland, from Warsaw. And I lived in different countries, landed here in Berlin, in Germany. And currently I'm working on Vent, the startup focusing on reducing the impact of toxic leadership. And I'm working with a number of different professionals from different backgrounds, and we are trying to bring our expertise together to make it easier on people working in unhealthy work environments.
Talk to me a little bit about toxic leadership. What are we talking about?
So toxic leadership, we're talking about those types of leaders who are predominantly focused on their own glory, on financial benefits at the expense of the well-being and well-being of the people they lead, and also often well-being of the companies, the success of the company. They focus very much on the short-term benefits over long-term goals. So sustainability is also not their strong side. And basically, they're very self-serving, and they're also very destructive in this way, supporting their own goals.
If somebody's hearing this, what are some examples to look for that they might be experiencing in their own workplace?
So it really depends. This is
Right.
The problem of toxic leadership is really complex because it's there are very many different signs of it. You can have a leader who is so focused on their own financial benefits that they don't pay so much attention to how the work is really done. They are not really guiding their teams. On the other hand, you might have those leaders who are focused on financial gains to the extent that they micromanage. So it really depends. The behaviors of leaders can be very different, but the biggest sign is how people are actually feeling about it. So one of the things that toxic leadership does to people, it's the long-term harm. So it has to be those behaviors, whatever they are, they have to be consistent over time, and they have to have a very harmful impact. So people listening who are wondering, am I working with a toxic leader? They might look at themselves and see if in the previous job, if it was a healthy environment, how they were performing, how they were feeling, what was it that they enjoyed, what was it that they didn't enjoy. Because in an unhealthy environment, it is typically the situation that it really takes over all your thoughts. It takes over all the free time that you have. So people take a lot of the worry and a lot of the trauma from work back to their families and social situations. And slowly, it reduces the joy of life. It reduces the time they have, quality time they have with families and friends. It also very much impacts negatively their self-belief and future prospects. So there is a lot of fear. There is a lot of feeling of being manipulated or gaslighted, just this insecurity, which maybe wasn't present beforehand. So when these thoughts and these feelings come up, it is usually good to have a look and pay attention to what kind of behaviors the leader presents, and also the team. How do people around you feel and behave? Because toxic leadership, we talk about leaders, but actually it's also what types of behaviors leaders tolerate. So you will have signs of toxic leadership also in the people around you. And if you spot that there is gossip, that nobody trusts each other, that there is a lot of negativity and lack of respect for time and well-being of colleagues, then that also suggests that there is a leader at the top who is so focused on profits and their own being perceived as a successful person that they ignore any signs of abuse or any signs of negligence in the team.
Wow. So are toxic leaders more overrepresented in one area of the world than another? Potentially any industries where they're overrepresented in your work? Any thoughts on where they live?
They live everywhere.
Right? I figured that was the answer, but I wanted to check.
This is something that I found really astonishing in my research. And I interviewed over 100 people internationally, and I read a lot of literature from different times, years, and places in the world. And there is really no limit on where toxic leaders come from or which gender they are, in general, in leadership, there are more men than women. So this is why proportionally there are more toxic leaders who are male, but that's because there are more male leaders.
More male
but
leaders,
in general, really, there is no limit to their ethnical background, their age, or even position in the hierarchy of the organization. And all these leaders, you can have a leader who is also a target of another leader. So it's really all stages of the ladder. So no, I would say there is no limitation. Also, when it comes to the targets of toxic leaders, it can happen to anybody. It can really impact everyone at every level of their career. So it is a very, very widespread problem.
Wow. So through your research, if it's not particular people and it's not particular industries, what do they have in common? What is the drive behind this style of leadership?
It is really this desire to gain something, personally gain something. So it's usually money, control, glory. It's just anything that can benefit this kind of person, and really at the expense of everything and everyone else around them.
Wow. What are sort of those signs that people should be looking for?
Well, it depends. If they're looking into the people they are recruiting or thinking about promoting to a leadership role, they definitely should pay attention to their emotional intelligence, to the level of their emotional intelligence. How do these people relate to others? What drives them? A leadership role is about taking care and managing, supporting other people. So it's not about being the top person. It's not about giving out orders. So you really have to make sure that the person who is in a leadership role knows and likes to work with people. And to pay attention, because it's when you often get promoted or recruited individual contributors who are experts in a certain field, it doesn't mean that they are equipped to lead people. Because you are not meant to be a star in the leadership role. You're meant to make other people stars. So it's really important that this person is attuned with this. If the leaders are looking and trying to identify if there is a problem of toxic leadership within their team, they must create a safe space for this kind of conversation. So if they notice that either the typical things, sick leave goes up, more people are sick, or if they see that there is a lot of overtime or stress or some sort of gossip, if they notice that there are some interpersonal conflicts happening, or there is one person who is driving it more than others, it's usually good to make sure that there is this safe space to ask people about the situation, that they can come forward.
So I know that a lot of times at least in the US, we have a very specific do as I say, not as I do style, right? So, like, we will say, we being companies, so companies will say, we care about work life balance, we care about these things. There's a lot of wellness speak being used inside companies, therapy speak, right? Being used inside companies. What do you think the sort of harm is in these management styles if in fact they are getting quote unquote results from their employees? What is sort of the negative impact that it's having in workplaces? What's sort of going to be that thing that forces a company to say of a high performer, well, this is toxic leadership, and this person, and statistically he's harming everybody? What might be those negative impacts?
The negative impacts on the company are is unsustainable. It's
Right.
what you said. Like, it may be a high performer. It may be a person who is really motivating the team by fear or
Yes.
threats. So they
Sure.
will perform really well in the short term, and it really
Right.
depends what we define as short term. But a year or two, that's already enough to bring really solid results for that time. But
Right.
it has really negative health impact, really bad impact on team morale, and in
Mm-hmm.
general, if there is high turnover, then there is loss
Mm,
of knowledge or loss of know-how. And what many companies care the most about is the reputation and the money in the lawsuits. So
that's right.
in order for the, and it also depends what type of organization, because you will have those profit driven organizations or companies that will really feel the blow financially if things
Right.
are happening. But then you have also big organizations like the UN or the
Mm-hmm.
EU, which are not so focused on profits, and they have
Right.
such prestige that they will always be getting applicants and the highest qualify applicants. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very easy for them to just treat people as they please, because also
Absolutely.
they give away so many benefits that many people just choose not to say anything. So
Right.
really to feel the pain, for the organizations to have an incentive to change, it's
Mm,
it is, I think, shifting this sense of what is shameful, because right
right.
now it really is more shameful to be the target. It's more shameful to be the victim,
Right.
while, to be honest, it should be perceived that as more shameful to be that type of organization, to be that type
Right.
of leader. And
Right.
this is what I'm trying to do with Vent, is
Mm,
to empower people to first of all recognize that it's happening, because in such organizations where for years, for even for decades, it's something that's been ingrained in the way they operate. People
yes.
come in and they come into this culture and they learn that, okay, this is how it is. Especially if you get young recruits who never worked before,
Mm-hmm.
they will just assume this is normal. And
Mm-hmm.
toxic leadership is very much normalized and widely accepted. So it's about recognizing what is happening, recognizing how it feels, what it feels like to be led by good leaders, healthy
Right.
leaders, and what it feels like to be led by toxic leaders, so that people can make those educated decisions. Because it's, I think the majority of the harm is caused by people not being aware of
Right.
what they're actually dealing with and taking it to heart, blaming themselves, feeling like
Right.
nothing they do can actually improve the situation. So it's very disempowering. And
Mm,
I think organizations will and companies will feel more when people are more aware and start stepping out or speaking up and kind of demanding in a way that employees are treated differently.
right. So you talk about shame. Do you think businesses are incentivized to change, or do you think businesses are often incentivized to silence those people who might speak out against toxic leadership?
Yeah, I
What's
think
been your
business.
experience, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Mhm. um, Definitely, uh, businesses go on the side of losing the least profit,
Yeah.
losing the
Yes.
least
Of
money, and
course.
often that's to silence people, of course, to give them money to agree outside of court, to kind of make it very hard for people to even report anything. And once they do, a quick way to remove them. So definitely, in my experience and from the interviews I have taken, the leadership of that company that we're talking about, theoretically is more focused also on the short-term gains. So really, those people, maybe they are short before retirement. They don't really want to, rattle any feathers, and they're happy. Let's just make sure that it's settled. I want to get my things done and then just be out on my boat or whatever. So it's yes. So it is definitely silencing. And we also know those stories of whistleblowers who have a really hard time after they do speak up. So it is, that's why I think it has to be more of a collective awareness. It has to be something that is more and more normalized. And I think when we now, like the awareness of mental health is growing, I think this is something that like we're getting closer and closer towards to recognize that a healthy work environment is actually should be a no-brainer. But it's just part of our human development.
Yeah. So change is happening slowly, right? So, but it is changing. What do you think is driving the change toward healthier work environments?
I think, well, there are probably different things. One is definitely what we all learned during Corona and lockdowns and working in a different way. So this is definitely something that is informing a new landscape of working and understanding the impact, the environment we are in while at work, especially because you spend so much time at work. We recognize it more, how important it is. Then the generational change, I'm pretty sure it's, well, it's digitalization for sure. Everything is much quicker. Feedback is quicker. All the results come quicker. So also you can spot quicker when, any sort of measurable values go up or down and what is the reason for that. So I think it's coming up in data, what kinds of leaders are really reducing productivity, what kind of leadership styles impact people negatively. So I think there is more and more awareness because of the recent developments and with the new generation of workers also demanding more of a mental health awareness. The companies have to pay more attention, otherwise they will not be able to recruit or maintain their legacy, so to say.
Yeah. So the narrative that we're getting here, again in the US, is that the younger generation is impossible to manage. They don't want to work. And that they expect these workforces to be play camps. And I think that that is hilarious because I'm 40, I'm a millennial, and they've said that about us not 10 years ago. So do you feel like it's really the younger generations that don't want to work, that cry over everything, or do you feel like this is sort of the last gasps of those sort of toxic leadership styles being challenged and maybe discarded?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that the new generation are weaker than the generations before, that they are lazier than the generations before. I really think that because they are more aware, because they have access to much more information and different type of education. I'm 38, so we're similar age. And I wish there was TikTok back then. So I could,
Did you see that video? Yes. I saw it. And then like the New Yorker came, I don't know if it was New Yorker. I want to say it was the New Yorker, but like came out with like, oh, the problem here is these kids. And it's like, or did we just really do that firing terribly and we expect to be patted on the back for sort of the bare minimum, right? Like we didn't do it right. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, absolutely. That's what I mean. It's more about awareness. It's more about people feeling like they have a voice. There is also this with social media. There is a whole platform for people to express themselves. So it's the new generation is just kind of part of this change. And had we had those opportunities, had our parents had those opportunities, our grandparents, they would have used them, because
Yes.
it's in human nature to kind of, to fight for ourselves. So I really think that, and the fact when they say that the new generation cries over everything, well, I don't think so. I think it's when there is something to cry about, people should cry about it.
People
And if
should
you're
cry
being
about it.
harmed, if you're being humiliated and abused, go ahead and express it. And also because as I don't know, as a species maybe, or as a previous generations, we've been so silenced, and the whole history of work and industrialization, and how workers have been used and abused for profit.
Right.
It's all in the history there. So it's really for everyone. It's generational, almost for everyone. It's generational trauma, in a sense, of how we've been
Yes.
socialized to work, and what work means, and what does your superior mean, and how you work with in terms of power dynamics. So it is
Right.
a lot of unlearning. And if there has to be a little bit more of crying right now, I think that's a natural process of kind of coming to terms with, like, how do we heal this massive human trauma,
Right.
and develop something more healthy.
Right. I'm also seeing, as we think about businesses, even though wellness speak and therapy speak has become so rampant in our business culture and in our workplaces, the ironic thing is what we're actually seeing is these are abuse tactics, right? Like these are abuse strategies. And when we're saying, oh, it's not so bad, or oh, they just expect everything, these are like silencing behaviors and sort of perpetuating abuse behaviors. And rather than like looking at what's going on, or having those conversations that might be uncomfortable, we're continuing to the process of silence overall. So what might be your strategy when we look at how workplaces are currently doing it? What's the ideal? What should businesses be doing?
So definitely one of the things they should be doing is putting additional measures in job descriptions, so that
Mm-hmm.
leaders can actually be measured by the impact that they have on other people.
Mm,
Because even if you get the most well-intended or intentioned leader, if their performance is not measured in a way that would showcase how they impact people, rather it
mm-hmm.
just uh, measures how much profit they bring in, how quickly they develop, how, in efficiency terms,
Mm-hmm.
then even, the best leaders will kind of steer away from that in order to move forward in their careers, or to
Right.
perform up to the standards. So definitely, the assessment of performance assessment has to be reevaluated in companies.
Mm-hmm.
Then in terms of this gaslighting that you mentioned about,
Mm,
oh, it's not a big deal, not a big that.
mm,
I think a lot of it is not even intentional. I think it's those
right.
people
Right.
who were brought into this culture, and they themselves, they explained it to themselves, it's not a big deal, and then they see
Right.
it happen to somebody else, and they say, come
Yes.
on, I went
I
even
went through
through worse.
this.
Yeah, or
Yes.
even worse.
Yes.
So
Yes. I
it's
turned
the
out fine. It's the same stuff, right? Yes.
exactly, I suffered, but I learned so much,
But
and
I
you will
learned
be
something.
grateful one day that you suffered
Yes.
this much. And
Yes.
I think it's part of this education, and people reflecting, because that's also, I don't only speak with people who are targets, but also people who recognized in themselves that they used toxic or dysfunctional leadership style to manage
Mhm.
others without even recognizing, or at some
Mhm.
point they recognized, and they find it hard to come to terms with the fact that they had negative impact on others, completely unaware.
Mm,
So it's I think it's also this part of this slow change where managers learn and see that there is another way, and that denying other people's feelings is not the way forward in any
right.
scenario. This is also
Right.
something that we are learning now. So I think a little bit of patience in a way, so that more and more leaders are educated in the right way.
Mhm.
But in general, just making sure that these standards are in place and they're kept, they're measured, how the performance is going, or the values, because that's another thing
Right.
which you mentioned somewhere in there. You also mentioned the companies, claiming this or claiming that, and the values
Right.
that they put on their websites to uphold them. What does it really mean to uphold those values?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's also very interesting that we know today, and perhaps not widely enough, we know today that when we look at stars, right, we assume that they are the ones that are driving this great work, all of this great stuff. But in fact, the science suggests the opposite, and that the stars are nothing without the teams that they work on, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's really fascinating that we would go so far in sort of enabling stars that might be toxic or abusive to the detriment of all, right? To the detriment of everybody else on the team. And I always wonder, how do you think this cycle gets perpetuated? Do you think it's just like top down where like people are just like, oh no, Todd's a great worker, he produces so much. How do you think like sort of these toxic leadership strategies and these abusive employees continues to be perpetuated just year over year? It's
Mm,
2024 is what I'm saying. Why are we
yeah.
still here?
Oh, this is an amazing question. There is an amazing researcher, Professor Liebman Blumen, and she
Mm-hmm.
actually wrote many papers about toxic leadership, focusing
Mm,
on the political side of things. So
sure.
on nation leaders and those really murderous leaders, so
Mm-hmm.
criminals. And what she was talking about was that as people, as humans, we have this need, especially in times of crisis, to look up to someone who has a plan, who has charisma, who we can trust that they will save us from this situation, who can be a leader. So
Mm-hmm.
it really seems like we have this tendency to be impressed and just to
Yeah.
want to have someone who can show us the way or promise us a bright future. And this is one of the things when in the toxic leader, in their search for glory, often they sell you this vision, which is like, wow, you will be part of something new. When you think of those companies that are innovative and they're coming up with
Mm.
something that has never been done before or never in this way, so you
Mm-hmm.
are there, you've been recruited, and you're thinking, "Whoa, I will. This will be a big thing. This person is special in the
Mm-hmm.
way they talk. Like I can feel this special vibe
The
about them. I want
charisma.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, the charisma. I want to learn from them. I want to be part of it." And then the same for like I don't know, the company leader or a founder. You see
Mm-hmm.
somebody like this, and you're like, "Oh my god, this person will take us to the next level." And then
Mm-hmm.
slowly, they recognize that okay, this is coming at a certain expense because it is visible. At the end of the day,
Right.
people notice. Okay, I am feeling a certain way, or my company was meant to go this direction, it's going a different direction. So this is
Mm.
noticed. And,
Right.
but the hope and the belief is there. And I think this is the best test
Mm.
for the top leadership once they start recognizing, okay, the things that we wanted to achieve are not being achieved. The values
Right.
which we had are suddenly broken and
Mm-hmm.
we're not getting there. Okay, we are getting a lot of money. Okay, we are getting a lot of press, but I can
Mm-hmm.
see that it's at this expense. What
Right.
choice will they make? Because it is a difficult choice in a capitalistic society
Of
where
course.
you have competition,
Right.
you have to make money, and suddenly you realize, oh, should we maybe if we go slower, it will be healthier. But
Right.
can we afford to go slower?
Right.
So
Right.
then the question is like, okay, me as a leader, now I started making money. Do I want to cut on my pay, or how do I solve this problem? So that's where you end up asking yourself, like, to what extent am I ready to compromise as well for the benefit of
Mm.
the greater good? And yeah, I think this is why year after year we are faced with similar problems
Mm-hmm.
because this is the kind of system we live in, and as part of our human nature we want to be part of something.
Right.
We want to contribute. It's not even about innovation. It happens
Mm-hmm.
in NGOs. It happens in
Right.
organizations which are really focusing on the well-being or environment and the good things in the world,
Mm.
and
Right.
and you want to contribute. And and sometimes you can get kind of fooled, in this hope and belief. So it's about recognizing it fast, and then taking this difficult decision of, yeah, it's a famous name of the company, but do I want to be here? Do I want to be part of this?
Right. And that style of leadership always doesn't pay off, because you're dealing with burnout almost immediately, turnover almost immediately, and you're being held back by how much you have to continue to start over and start over and start over with people. And I always think that that's so funny, because yes, a sprint will work in the short term, but it never pays off. And
Exactly.
I think that it's so interesting. And I wanted to ask you whether you thought it was just sort of a function of capitalism, but you mentioned that it's happening in NGOs as well. What creates these conditions?
Yeah, well, prestige and money. So some NGOs, they don't make so much money,
Right.
but they are very, like, wow, look at this person fighting for this
Powerful.
cause.
Right.
Yes. And
Right.
so you get those points. Like, it depends what people care about. If they care about being seen in a certain way, like the
Yes.
savior, like the
Yes.
hero, they
The
don't care
hero.
how much
Right.
money they make. Yeah, it's
Right.
about the
Exactly.
glory. And
Right.
then there are those who care, like, they don't care if they are producing weapons or, things that are harmful to other people, as long as they make money on it. So it really depends which, yeah, what is driving people. And in general, these environments are driven by this kind of greed, yeah, for
Right.
personal gain. Yeah.
Right. Right. So greed, regardless of what it's for, sort of, if it's not money, it's power, it's prestige, it's, no, it's the
Control.
same,
Yeah.
it's control. Exactly. That's an excellent point. So talk to me a little bit about Vent. What are you doing and who works with you?
So we are a collaboration hub. We are working with different experts. So coming from different fields, from IT, software development, and psychologists, people who are focusing on the dark triad. So like dark personalities, corporate psychopathy. It can go as far as criminal activity as well. I mean, this topic touches so many different areas of expertise. So this is why, in the end, we decided to be a collaboration hub, because there is no way to have this expertise on our own, and there are so many wonderful people doing this work already and focusing in their areas. So we are trying to create technology-driven solutions that could reach as many people as possible, to spread this awareness, to make it as as an openly discussed topic in a safe space, or in a safe way, so that there is more and more awareness, and people can decide for themselves, do I stay, how long do I stay, and recognizing what kind of impact it may have.
So the goal of the collaboration is to raise awareness about toxic leadership styles. What types of tools are y'all utilizing when you are dealing with potentially whistleblowers or any of those types of people that are coming to you to report these situations?
So currently we are working on anonymous basis, because it is it's a very sensitive topic. It's very difficult to ensure safety, to guarantee that there will be no backlash. We are not yet in the position to guarantee such safety or security. So we offer only things that can be shared in an anonymous way, unless someone at their own will would like to do it publicly. But then it's so far it hasn't really happened. So mostly we share stories. So right now we record interviews and create cartoons where people can tell their story in a way that doesn't expose them. It doesn't expose the company they're talking about. We want to highlight the patterns and behaviors and the feelings and the impact, so that people recognize it more. It actually, I've been working on it for a year and a half now. And I've got a lot of amazing feedback, how important it is that it resonates, that it validates the experience. So currently, one of the tools that we're using are those cartoons. We're producing educational materials right now on LinkedIn, but also we will be now expanding to Instagram and Facebook, and TikTok maybe later. We'll see. That's
Maybe
a
later,
challenge.
right?
Yeah. So, and we have a website. It's toxic leadership vent.com.
Mm,
And there we are sharing some of the stories that we collected over the past year and a half. And we continue to do the interviews. So another tool is sharing stories, also
mhm,
in an anonymous way.
mhm.
So we don't publish, we don't target any companies in particular. We group
Sure.
them into company sizes. So this way people can assess, like, okay, I'm working for a tiny company, there are
Mhm.
some stories from a tiny company. Here
Mm,
I work for a transnational massive or governmental institution, we have stories from that space. So in this way people
mm,
can also resonate with maybe similar situations to theirs. And we are looking for right now, we will be prototyping soon something that is more tech focused, so that
mhm.
actually, it can reach more people, doesn't require so much manpower or woman
Mm.
power to
Isn't that
facilitate
right?
it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing work. You must feel really accomplished in the work that you're doing. You must feel really like you're adding something awesome to the world. Is that like are you excited by what you're doing every day?
I am really excited about what I'm doing every day. It's in terms of feeling fulfilled that, oh, we're achieving or we're giving so much. It
Yes.
never feels enough. It really feels
Right.
like, oh, I wish there was something we could develop. That's why we also thought it has to be multiple tools. It cannot be just one
Yes.
thing, because it's
Right.
so many different angles to address, and people have different situations. And oh my god, there is so much that goes into it. So it really feels like, we scratched the surface. It doesn't
Yes.
just feel like it. That's what we did. We
Of
barely
course.
scratched the surface.
Of
So
course.
it
Yeah.
is satisfying, especially when I speak with people, because these interviews, I develop relationships with people as
Of
well.
course.
So I
Right.
hear from them, months later, weeks
Mhm.
later, how their story is developing, because sometimes I
Right.
speak with people who are currently in a difficult situation, and then
Sure.
they get out of it or something changes, so they keep me updated. And it's really, this is the most fulfilling part, is
Of
just
course.
hearing those stories, how things evolved, and also how much difference it made to their
Mhm.
well-being, just being able, first of all, to recognize what happened to them, and then
Yes.
to be heard.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's, I think the most rewarding part of my job right now is being able to give people this space. And because I experienced it as well, they're not just talking to a person who is listening. I'm also, in that story in a way. So it's
Mhm.
really, I am very, yeah, I love what I do, definitely.
That's amazing. Do you feel like it's healing you, being the
Woo.
person that you needed? Yes, that's
Yeah,
amazing. I
absolutely. And with
swear
all
that's
these,
really the theme of this podcast, honestly, more than anything. The people who have who are living their best lives are always they always have become the adult they needed in their worst moment, right? Like so it's such a fascinating conclusion every time I talk to someone like yourself, or every time I talk to somebody who's helping other people find themselves on that journey out of a toxic place. What they're doing is becoming the person that they needed when they were in that moment. And I'm so fascinated that that's exactly where you are. That's so awesome. Congratulations, first of all. So I want to talk to you forever, but I know I need to let you get back to the world. So how do people work with you in the future? How do people follow you? How do people potentially contribute to your work?
hmm so our website, Toxic Leadership Vent, is the best place to get in touch with us. We have a contact form which has different types of whatever a person may need to contact us for, and
Mhm.
I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
And Vent also has a profile on LinkedIn.
Yay.
So right now, like I said, we will be also going to Instagram and Facebook. So it will be called Vent as well. But maybe I
Yes.
keep you updated when we have those links.
Perfect. Please do. I
Yeah.
hope I see your cartoons on TikTok someday, sharing with the young kids that they're not wrong and that these things are true and they're actually happening and that they shouldn't be gaslit by major media, right?
Absolutely.
Amazing. I'm so proud of you. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to speak to you and follow your journey. That's incredible work. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you
Absolutely.
for creating this space. It's really, I
Oh,
love your podcast, and it's really so
thank
interesting.
you.
And the different kinds of speakers that you have and topics that you touch upon. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Kasia has sent me these links in advance, and they are below in the show notes if you'd like to connect with her or enable her work or talk to her about a story that you're experiencing. I'm sure she would love to hear from you. So, y'all, thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the Indomitable Podcast for more incredible stories of humaning. Remember, my book, Indomitable, A Foster Care Story, is available wherever you get your books and currently has 5 stars on Goodreads, so I'm pretty proud of that. Thank you to all my Indomitable friends who came out to visit me at the book signing last week. It is always so rewarding to see people being impacted by my story and sharing their journeys back with me. If you have any upcoming events you'd like me to bring the Indomitable experience to, please submit a request via my website. And finally, as ever, I am so happy to have you in community here with me. And remember, together we are truly indomitable. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.